Chapter 9 talks about how to recover the potentially lost customer. How do you retain your customers? What's the importance in doing that for your overall business? And really, the importance of it is it's very important. Um, the book talks about how an average company will lose half its customers every 5 years, and what's the impact on the long-term success of the business of that company? Well, the turnover hurts profitability, and it hurts the overall company brand. We talk about the word of mouth. So what happens when you lose a customer to a bad experience? They go out there and they tell others about that experience, and we know how important word of mouth is. People trust what their friends and their neighbors say. So you got a customer who leaves your business because of a bad experience. They go out there and tell others. Those are potentially customers, future customers you're not going to gain, or it could be current customers who will be turned off by what their friend or neighbor experienced. They don't come back to you. So there's a lot of danger in terms of profitability, loss of profitability, when you have an upset customer, when you have an unhappy customer. So why not put a lot of effort into retaining the customer? And when you do lose a customer, throwing the fish line out there to reel them back in and welcome them back into your business. So the book talks about in this chapter how to do that. It's interesting, the statistic that 43% of sales managers and 47% of marketing managers do not conduct what is called defection interviews, where a defection interview is where you find out from a customer who's defected your business, find out why did they leave. So and that would be such valuable information to have. I think a lot of businesses and people shy away from asking those questions because maybe they don't want to know. But think about it. You find out why a customer is upset or why they've left. There's value to that information that you get. And what the book talks about is how if you gain a customer back because you ask them what's wrong and you try to resolve that, they enter what's called the second life with you. The second life cycle, which is that of the recovered customer, varies a bit from the customer's first life cycle in at least 4 ways. One, the recovered customer is already familiar with the products and service that you offer. You don't have to teach them. You don't have to re-educate them about what your business is about, what your products are about. They know because they've been a customer before. As a result of asking those questions, you now have some data about the likes and dislikes of this particular customer and can offer a more targeted service that's specific to them. The customer might feel flattered by your efforts to win them back, and that's always a good thing. And finally, the prospect phase and the new customer phase would arguably be shorter in the second life cycle than in the first one. This customer, the recovered customer, becomes acclimated doing business with you more quickly. So what are some of the keys to not losing a customer and keeping a customer retained with you? Well, one, it requires a positive attitude on your part to problem solving. Treat a problem a customer has not as a pain in the behind, but something it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to try and solve because of what the future impact is going to be in your relationship with that customer. Don't necessarily adopt a customer is always right mindset, and I think that's kind of a mistake in customer service to say that the customer is always right, because no one is always right. So if you think that the customer is always right, it can sometimes have a negative repercussion on what you're trying to do. And have an attitude of opportunity. Customer complaints, as I said before, they're opportunities to create stronger loyalty. So what are some of the key issues in customer disputes? Again, not thinking of who is right and who is wrong. There's no need to get a battle over that. It's really about problem solving, and that doesn't necessarily require any type of finger pointing towards yourself or towards the customer. Figure out a way that how all parties can cooperate together to resolve that problem. And really it's about solving the customer's concerns, which of course you can't do that unless you can identify what the specific concerns are. And these type of customer recovery skills, they're necessary to career success, and it's quite often used in business, so it's a very good thing to use. The key skills in customer recovery involve: 1, feeling the customer's pain, 2, doing all that you can to resolve the problem, and offering what is known as symbolic atonement. So you want to kind of familiarize yourself with that term, because that's really a nice one to apply towards making this procedure, this problem solving, this recovery a successful one. And it's always good after you have had that type of interaction, that you've worked with an upset customer and you've either dealt successfully or unsuccessfully with their problem, to review what you did and see what lessons can be learned for future applications down the road, either to make improvements or if it worked, apply those same skills to another customer. Although the concern of customer A is going to vary quite a bit from customer B, so in some ways there's no basic template you can use. It's really about individual customer concerns, and that's going to vary from customer to customer. Now, keep in mind through all this that you expend a lot of emotional labor when you're trying to, when you're working with unhappy customers, and it's oftentimes difficult to remain upbeat under difficult circumstances. I feel poorly for people who work out there, who their job is to take customer complaints on an hourly basis. That's a very stressful thing to do. So you really have to work to avoid letting customer anger or frustration get to you. Easier said than done at times, but for your own mental sake, it's very important to do. Occasionally in business, we come across these chronic complainers. These are complainers who are not going to be happy no matter what you do. So how do you deal with them? How do you deal with someone that going into the conversation that there really isn't a good end result that is going to make them a satisfied customer and not drive yourself nuts? Well, one, you need to make sure that they are chronic complainers, because that'll impact how you're going to work with them. Two, you need to know what to do. And as far as you apply some of the skills that you apply to other complainers, you actively listen, you establish the facts with them. You be very careful, don't apologize to them necessarily, and really try to put the ownership of resolving the solution, of resolving the problem, on the chronic complainer. Try to pitch it in a way that they come up with a solution, and in some ways, that's going to be your best way to deal with them right there. And when it's done, take a break and cool off before you move on to the next customer, because those chronic complainers can be ones that can really make you red-faced for a while. Effective communication with our customers, whether they're upset customers or happy customers, really use basic human relations principles that this chapter talks about. It revolves around the self-interest of the receiver, revolves around receiver-centeredness, which is you're really focusing in on the receiver and using language that shows that you're there to help them. It requires individual treatments and positive information. So you're really trying to do one-on-one positive communication that is directed specifically to that person, making them feel valued, making them feel special and important, and that their time with you is important to you. And really what it comes down to in this chapter, and probably throughout the whole book for that matter, is that attitude makes all the difference in this. It makes all the difference. You want to be sure to, in working with customers and in reading this chapter, to note the difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness, aggressiveness or abrasiveness. Abrasiveness is a drawback. Assertiveness, however, lends to better problem resolution, because assertiveness really comes down to being pleasantly direct. So make sure you know the difference between those two terms. They are widely different and can really have different effects depending on which one you use. So that's Chapter 9, Recovering the Potentially Lost Customer. We'll see you next time with lecture number 10.